Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, AirsoftAL, the common man's airsofter who answers commonly asked questions about action cameras, so you guys know exactly what is going on and what is what. Now, before anyone asks, what spurred this video series on was more or less ironically, a question session I had with a friend of mine and well, not really patron, but a participant in the Discord, Dr. Airsoft. Dr. Airsoft got his first action camera recently, or is getting his first action camera, and he had a lot of questions about him. And while, yes, I answered them in text form, I think it's a lot better to actually do it in video form, so that he has at least a little bit of an understanding of what the action camera is and other knowledgeable aspects of them. So let's begin, shall we? To make sure everyone's on point, or at least is understanding of what an action camera is a small camera that you can mount either on a bike, your body, your head, or anything of that nature, and basically be able to capture the action as in front of you, and it be protected by some form of case or otherwise. Now, originally this was known as a body camera. For a lot of people's terminology, you know, those big blocky things that cops have to wear, which in reality don't really shoot that great a video, and the audio kind of sucks, in my opinion. I wish they'd go with GoPros, but I think we're kind of caught up on that. So let's get into actually this video. So the biggest one is, what action camera is out there on the market right now in 2020? A lot. What I mean a lot is that before, there was just the GoPro Hero, which is what I'm shooting this video on right now, and is what this is right here. The GoPro Hero is a good, affordable option right now because it's below $100. When it first came out, or at least when I first bought one, about 3-4 years ago, I want to say, it was about $120. Right now, if you can find one, you can find one for about $100, or even less, since I think they've long discontinued the Hero camera, but I don't really know. But either way, though, the Hero camera is a self-contained action camera. Much like the Vivitar right here, this one is sort of what is based on the newer GoPros, where it has the removable camera so you can do all that. But the original GoPro Hero is a self-contained one where it's fully permanently inside the body case itself. And I've used this camera for a good long while, and I'll probably continue using it. And more or less, the only thing you can change out is the back itself because, well, it comes with either a solid back for underwater diving or a skeletal back, which is just one long piece of plastic right here containing the camera itself, but vent holes right here so you have better audio quality. That's something we'll get into a little later in the video. But the GoPro Hero is a good starting option for most people and can accept a good amount of SD cards. Now, I know a lot of you are probably immediately typing, doing all this stuff, but I'm going to go ahead and go through the questions and answers that me and Dr. Airsoft had on the actual premise of an action camera. The first one is, which one should I go for? When it comes to affordability of a GoPro nowadays, or at least an action camera, there are hundreds of thousands of options on the market, from a Chinese knockoff to a genuine GoPro to the actual genuine competitors that are being put on the market, such as Vivitar and even Sony. Sony does have a good bit of action cameras, but we'll get to that in another video one day when I actually get a Sony action camera and we actually compare the two and contrast between a GoPro and a Sony. However, the affordable market right now for action cameras is actually pretty full. And if you go on YouTube right now and you start typing up a lot of the names of these cameras, you can see a lot of cool contrast and even some that are really good. My friend Bowman actually it has one of these cheap Chinese knockoffs, and it is just as good as a GoPro Hero Session, from what he's told me. But right now I want to talk about something a little more with the different camera options, or at least the ones I have, because I've been doing this for a long time and I have a lot of camera options, including some that I got from my buddy Tony, aka Apex. So let's talk about one that I think a lot of you may have seen in Walmart recently, or may not have, depending on how things go. This is the Vivitar Experience Body Cam. This is the cheapest one you can go for. This is like 30 bucks. I'm not joking on that. This is 30 bucks, and the quality is just what you expect. And it's good, I guess, but it's not great. The camera life on this thing is about 2 hours at the most, and that's not good. This ain't good for what you're going for, but this is probably just the bare bones bottom of the barrel we're going to talk about. So let's not talk about this one. This is probably the worst option you can go with right now. Next up is the Call of Duty Ghost action camera, and you can still buy these. This is based off of a cheap action camera, and it actually does do pretty good. It does shoot in 1080p HP. It's basically got the same fish lens type deal of the GoPro, where it shoots in wide, and the battery life on this thing is about 4 hours. And you can connect a battery pack to it, and you can do that, and you can expand the battery life a little more. And again, it's not that bad, but it is finicky. Again, this is basically a cheap knockoff camera that's about $30–40. And I don't recommend it if you're really wanting one. I have it because this has been my selfie cam, but at the same time, it's been finicky, and it will just automatically cut off on you when you don't want it to cut off on you. So, yeah, it's not that good, but at the same time, it's a hit and miss. But the tubular cameras like this, you can actually get a tubular action camera that is a lot better and is a name brand camera and does do a lot better than most other action cameras. So if you're wanting a more slimmed down camera for either a selfie cam or an action cam as a whole, you can buy this type of option, and there are those that are actually really good, really great, and a better option out there on the market right now. Again, you could, but it all depends on how you're feeling about a tubular camera versus a, well, what the next options are. And then we get to the worst option of them all, the Vivitar action camera. This one's about $30 also at Walmart. And it has this weird zoom effect. Even if you do this as a selfie, as a FPF, as a first-person camera, it has this weird zoom in effect. No matter how far back you push that zoom, it's not that great. It's still going to have the zoom effect. And the worst part of it all, when you go to edit the footage, there's going to be this weird green effect. When you go to edit in either Windows Movie Maker or something else, there's this weird, like, CTRT TV type effect going through the screen. You have to fix that. So this is not a great option if you're wanting one. I'd avoid this option. And then finally, the most expensive of them all, the GoPro Hero 5 Session. And this is actually really a nice one. This is about, right now, $130 at the most. Online, mind you. I don't know what it is at Walmart right now. I believe it's around $200 still. It's one of those things. But this is a good option because it has a Wi-Fi connection to basically connect to your phone, so you can use the GoPro app. We'll get to that later on in the video. I'm just going through the different cameras. And basically is got so many bells and whistles and shoots in 4K that, yeah, this is a pretty good option if you want high quality footage and you want to get the best option for the money. So that's what we got. Of course, there are the newer GoPro Heroes that actually have some low light settings. They actually do a lot of stuff in the kitchen sink, but they're really expensive. And that's not what this video is about. This is just answering commonly asked questions. Alright? Alright, now that we got the understanding of what the options are on the market right now in terms of what I have and experiences, let's go ahead and get down to the technical nitty-gritty. So let's say you get a GoPro Hero or you get one of the knockoffs. What do you need to make the camera work? Well, you need a SIM card, or at least a micro SD card at the most. Now, when you go to get a micro SD card, it would be a good option to get the biggest one you got. However, the camera may have a limitation on how big of the SD card you can get. What I mean by that is that you need a specific class of SD card. The SD card you need is a Class 10 SD card. Now, you're probably wondering, how do I know it's a Class 10 SD card? Well, pulling out the SD card from the, well, not this one. Apparently I put it in the other one. Hold on a second. There we go. Pulling the SD card out of the Hero 5 Session, which is the smallest one in my collection right now of SD cards. There we go. This is the SD card. This is a 16 gigabyte SD card, and we will get that why it's significant in a moment. But on there, if I can find it, I believe they're not sure, but you will know it's a Class 10 because there'll be a little circle on the SD card itself that will show a 10. But to give the best one, right there, if you can see that, there's a little U with a 1 in there. I don't know if you can see that or not. Basically, look for the Class 10 SD card. The micro SD card is definitely needed for the camera operation to actually, well, work, in a sense. Now, depending on the biggest bit of SD cards, you'll get that amount of time. Now, with the SD, now, This is where things get a little more complicated, because depending on the camera, you can get this much time to film. Now, the SD card itself, depending on how big it is, that's how long you get to film. With the GoPro Hero I have right now, I have a 32GB SD card inside of it. That allows me 4 hours of filming. And it will tell you on screen itself how long you have to film. Now, the GoPro itself has a battery life of about 7 hours, fully charged, mind you. However, depending on how long you use it, that battery life might drain a little faster, so definitely keep an eye on that. With something a little bit more, now granted that's in 720p I have. The higher pixelation you have, be it from 720, 480, or even all the way up to 1080 and even 4K, that's how much less of a filming life you have. With the GoPro Hero 5 Session being able to shoot in 4K and 1080p, I chose the 1080p option because that gives me a little bit more film life. However, the sad part is that even with it being at the 1080p mark, I only have about 2 hours to an hour's worth of filming with this camera. Again, that's how much you have in terms of filming life. So if you're going to a 2-day milsim, you're going to have to get more SD cards to actually pop in and out of the camera, because that's how much life you have with the camera. Now, this is where things get a little bit more interesting, because technically speaking, a GoPro or even any other knockoff action camera can handle bigger SD cards. This one can go up to the largest SD card for filming, and that will give you at least an estimated about 8 to 7 hours worth of filming. But depending on if you get one of the knockoff GoPros, you may get a little less than that, depending on if it's able to handle the larger space in that Class 10 of micro SD card. Again, it's a hit and miss, and you got to test it out, so I am going to have to tell you guys that if you do get an action camera, you're going to have to buy at least the larger SD cards, be it the 32, the 64, or even the larger 128 gigabytes of basic storage for a micro SD card. That is essentially what's with the GoPro. Now, another one is, of course, let's say you're going to a game and you get there for about that long, but you're worried about the battery life. With the knockoff GoPros, you have about 2 hours worth of battery life. And with the actual legitimate GoPros, you may have anywhere between 7 hours to even between 5 and 7 hours worth of battery life in that GoPro, unless you have the ones that can actually swap out the batteries, or the swappable batteries. Now, I've gotten this question a lot, and the biggest one is, how can I extend the battery life? This was something I was talking to Dr. Airsoft about, and that is very simple. Go to your local Walmart and buy a power bank. A lot of you already have questions, I know. This is a power bank I got from Walmart. This holds about an extra 7 to 8 hours of power. And the cool part is you have a display on there that actually shows you how much power you have left. Now, what you can do with this to extend the battery life of your action camera is essentially hook up the power cord that comes with your camera, hook it up to the camera itself, and that way, with the power pack somewhere, be it on your head or even on your gun itself, if you're using it as a selfie cam, you have that much power extra, and that goes into it. So let's say with this GoPro here, which I've done before, that has a 7-hour battery life. Well, hooking this up, that's an extra 7 to 8 hours of battery life. That will go for that long, because it will be, the camera will be running directly off this. This will essentially be the camera's battery. And when this finally goes out, then I have that original 7 hours of power left. So, there's that, essentially. The same principle applies to other action cameras. If you have that power bank on you, or be it on your head, your helmet, otherwise, with a wire running through, connecting it directly to the camera, that power pack will act as the battery, essentially, until the power pack runs out, and then the camera relies on its original battery that it was going to run off of. Understand? Good? Got it? Awesome. So, let's move on to something else entirely. Depending on what it comes with, which Dr. Airsoft, of course, we were talking about this, your camera may come with a hard case. For many of you who's afraid that you don't want to get your camera shot out, perfectly understandable. However, something I have to tell you, don't go with the hard back. If you don't have a skeletal back, then this is what you can do. What you want to do is you want to cut out at least oblong style things. Look at the GoPro skeletal back and just basically trace out where that will be, and then take a Dremel or anything of that nature, or even a drill for that matter, and basically cut out those oblong patterns. That will give your GoPro or any other action cam that extra needed basic ability, because if you have it in a full skeletal back, that is an enclosed environment, and you cannot hear anything. All the action will be muffled. This is the one thing that always pisses me off about things, because I will watch an airsoft video where people have these things in the full, just sealed environment case, essentially, and you can't hear dick. The reason you're able to hear such clear quality from my GoPro is because I have the skeletal back on it. You don't have to worry about the back of your GoPro getting shot out. The back is where all the audio comes from. That's where the audio is able to come in, because the microphone and everything else is in the back of the camera. Not the front of it, the back of it. However, a lot of knockoff cameras have the microphone and everything in the front. So if you have to, and I mean if you have to, have it in the solid back, at least cut a hole where the microphone is, where it's able to capture sound. Give it that ability to have that sound captured, at least clear quality. Because if you're wanting to start recording your gameplay, you got to make sure that the audio is clear. So before you even take it out to the field, experiment with the case. Find out if the skeletal back alone is good for it, or if the microphone is in the front of it, take a Dremel and put the camera inside. This is what I did for for a buddy of mine. His microphone was in the front right here. What I did for him was basically put the camera in, trace over the microphone with a permanent marker, basically where that is, took out the camera, took a Dremel, and just dremeled out a hole. I did a small hole first. We recorded a little audio of me talking. I basically did seashell, seashell by the seashore. The audio was a little better, but not to the point where we could agree on that it was good. So we made the hole a little bigger. Got better. Made the hole a little bigger. Basically, we encompassed the whole circle where the entire microphone was. And that's what we did. Now, other YouTubers, of course, will actually do tricks to where the microphone, where it actually has an extended microphone outside of it. Shiloh did this. A lot of other European sniper YouTubers did this, and their audio quality from their GoPro is actually really good. That's actually a good point, honestly. Now, this is something I think a lot of people don't understand, is that the action cameras themselves are actually good, and the cases will stop everything. But if you have the camera in the entire sealed case, your audio will be crap. And this is something I think a lot of people have forgotten about when it comes to action cameras, is that they are cameras as a whole. The case itself is not designed to let sound in if you put the solid back on. You have to have the skeletal back on if you want that audio quality. That's just more or less something I think a lot of people who buy action cameras kind of forget about. So before you even take the camera out to record your gameplay, please test it first. Record a couple things. Record yourself saying seashell, seashell by the seashore. Watch the footage back, and then go from there. Now, I said earlier in the video about there being a companion app for the GoPro. Not for the Hero, sadly. The Hero does not have that option. However, with the Hero 5 Session, as well as a few other action cameras that may have this option, or at least a remote, there is a companion app so your phone can act like a remote. What do I mean by this? I mean, nowadays action cameras have an app to where you can basically via Bluetooth use your phone as not only a remote, but you can also use it as a wireless screen, so that way whatever you see on this GoPro is immediately beamed directly to your phone. So that way you can, if you have to, take out your phone, boot up the app, connect it to the GoPro before you even start the game, so that way it's paired essentially. And then, if you have this style, you can take off your camera from your mount and just basically peek it around the corner and use your phone essentially to, in a sense, see if there's any enemies there. At that point, put it back in, and then go to town. That's a good example of it, essentially, of how it will work. The best part is, if you can't visibly see the screen on your GoPro, then you can look at your phone. Let's say you don't know how much longer filming you have. Well, pull out your phone and just unlock it, obviously, and see that you may have this many hours of battery left, this many hours of filming left, and see if it accidentally may have gotten shot out. Again, this is one of those things of a quality of life that GoPro has done, and many other, I think even knockoff companies have done. So that's essentially what the GoPro, that's essentially what I meant earlier, is that your phone acts not only as a screen, but you can take pictures with your phone, you can stop the recording with your phone if the game is over, so that way you don't have to keep reaching up here to press the button. And there's even a remote for GoPros, well, the newer ones, mind you, where you can actually have it on your wrist so you can stop it, take a snapshot, pause, do all that, essentially. Now, before we end this video, I think it's a good option to talk about head mounts, because, again, this is just stuff I'm talking about Dr. Airsoft on and kind of answering a lot of his questions. When it comes to mounting your camera, there's a good bit of options. So I'm going to talk about the two options that I do, essentially, for mounting my camera. When it comes to mounting your camera for FPS, or POV cam footage, you have the helmet option, and then you have the head strap option. Let's talk about the helmet option first. Now, I did this as a sort of like a ghetto thing, essentially. I took the red strap off the actual mount itself and just mounted it inside the NVG port here, so that way, you know, the camera could be essentially put on there as a whole. This is the basic option you can do for, well, damn near anything. And it does work. However, you have to be wary about the heat. So, the glue does get warm and can come off, so you actually could have your camera fall off your helmet. So if you really want to go with this option, I'd suggest you get the NVG mounts that are on the market right now. Be it the metal ones, which you can buy on eBay or Evike, or even the brain exploder ones, which can be bought as well, which are actually really, really, really good. Seriously, they are really good. I definitely recommend you try them out, at the most. The next one is ones that will come with your camera, which, Dr. Airsoft, if you are watching this and you do get your camera by the time of this video and you don't have a head mount, don't worry, I've got head straps. The head strap option is actually the best option, because it's loose enough so that way when you wear it on your cap, if I can get this thing to work properly, because my hat feels like it wants to move with me. Ah, hell. Yeah, this is the one option that's kind of weird. Anywho. With the head strap option, you can tighten it up to where it's good and secure on your head. This is an option I've used a lot and has actually worked a lot for me. With this one, if you're wearing a ball cap, don't worry. The GoPro angled down will actually see everything. It shoots at 170 degree, basically wide, so you can see everything. Not your bill, of course, of your ball cap, but you can see that. If you're wearing a goggin, like our good friend House Gamers up north, then he he has one option of putting the camera down a bit. This is the same head strap I've used for a lot of my takedown guide videos, and actually does work pretty well. Now, the best part is that because these straps are actually secured to my head, you can do this. If you're wearing a ball cap, it won't be as annoying. What you can do is take your power pack and just put in the back here where it's somewhat secured. There we go. And while, yes, you may feel a little pressure, it's not as bad. So that way you have your power pack right here at the back of your skull, and this is something I have done before, so, you know, one of those things, and actually have the cord running over your head directly to the camera, depending on how long the cord is. If the cord's really long, I suggest you start wrapping it up around the thing itself, so that way the power pack is a little bit more secure. But the tension retained by the straps will keep the power pack in there. But taking it off, you will have a little bit of fun. Either way, though. And that's it. That's literally all I have to say about, well, what my conversation between mine and Dr. Airsoft was about the action camera he was getting. Now, understand that not all action cameras are the same. The functionality is the same, yes, but the manufacturing, the technical aspects of it, and otherwise are totally different. And each one is not the same. So, to my fellow airsofters out there who actually have action cameras, start dropping useful knowledge in the comment section down below, so that people who actually want to get into action cameras or want to actually start recording their gameplay, let them know what you do with your action camera, as well as other useful tidbits and knowledge. Again, we're trying to help out the newer generation who wants to start recording it, so they can go to school one day, basically pull up their channel and be like, hey, this is what I do, this is kind of cool. And otherwise, again, I'm doing this video series to basically help answer commonly asked questions from the new players. So, thank you all for watching. As always, I've been AirsoftAL, and if you would like me to try and get more cameras, or even review other action cameras, then consider donating to our PayPal down below. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been AirsoftAL, the common man's airsofter, who helps answer questions for new players, so that way they know what to do. Thank you all for watching. As always, I will see you all next time. Later.